My name is Charlie Bennett Bennett. I was 36 when my marriage ended, though calling it a marriage still feels too generous. I am a pilot, and for most of my adult life, the sky had been the one place that made sense to me. There were checklists, routes, instruments, weather reports, procedures. Even when things went wrong, there was a system for handling it. You stayed calm. You read what was in front of you. You trusted facts over panic. That was probably why Margaret Hayes fascinated me when we first met. She was the opposite of everything I was trained to be. She moved through life like a burst of color in a room full of gray suits. She was a wedding planner, and a good one. She could walk into an empty ballroom and describe where the flowers should fall, where the lights should glow, where the bride would pause for the photograph everyone would remember. Margaret Hayes did not simply organize weddings. She sold people the idea that love could be staged perfectly if the lighting was right and the linens matched. I fell for that confidence. I fell for the way she made ordinary moments feel designed. Dinner at home became a theme. A walk after rain became romantic because she said it was. I was quiet, steady, predictable. She was bright, restless, and dramatic in a way that made life feel less mechanical. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. I took her to Maui, brought the ring, waited until we were standing near a waterfall with mist in the air and sunlight breaking through the trees. It looked like something she would have planned for a client, except this time she had not controlled it. When I got down on one knee, she pressed both hands over her mouth and started crying before I even finished asking. She said yes. People nearby clapped. Someone took a photo for us. Everything about it seemed perfect. Our wedding was exactly what Margaret Hayes loved most. Big, elegant, expensive, and carefully orchestrated down to the smallest detail. She treated it like the most important event she had ever managed. The flowers were imported. The band cost more than my first car. The food was arranged like art. She adjusted timelines, corrected vendors, approved table settings, and changed the lighting plan twice because she said the first version made the room feel cold. It should have bothered me that our own wedding felt like another project in her portfolio, but I told myself that was just who she was. My bank account certainly noticed. I did not. I believed I was investing in the beginning of our life together. Our honeymoon was in Italy. We skipped most of the tourist checklist. We did not race from landmark to landmark or fight crowd for photographs. Instead, we rented a small apartment, bought groceries from little markets, cooked pasta badly, drank wine, and stayed in bed late. For a few days, I believed I had stepped into one of those postcards people keep on refrigerators and never throw away. Then, on the flight home, something changed. Margaret Hayes was sitting next to me, but she felt far away. She was not angry. She was not cold in an obvious way. She was simply absent, as if part of her had already landed somewhere else. Every so often, when she thought I was looking out the window or checking my tablet, she glanced down at her phone. Once, I saw her smile at something on the screen. Not the polite smile people give a meme or a group chat. It was softer than that. Private. I asked if everything was okay. She said, of course, too quickly. 2 weeks after the wedding, I walked into our kitchen in the middle of the night to get a glass of water. Her phone was on the counter. I was not looking for anything. I had never been that kind of husband. But the screen lit up just as I reached for a glass, and my eyes landed on the notification before I could stop them. The name was Michael Brooks. I knew who he was. Margaret Hayes' college ex. The one she had described as ancient history. The one she said had been immature, intense, and long gone from her life. The message on the screen said, I miss the way you used to look at me. For a moment, I just stood there. The refrigerator hummed. The kitchen light made the marble counter look too bright. I heard Margaret Hayes' footsteps behind me. She came in, saw my face, and then saw the phone. Michael, I asked. She snatched the phone off the counter so fast it told me more than any answer could have. It's nothing, she said. He reached out. I didn't ask him to. I looked at her. Really looked. Margaret Hayes was usually ready for anything. She could lie to a furious bride's mother with a smile and make it sound like customer service. She could talk her way through problems before anyone else knew there was a problem. But that night, when I asked, did you message him first? She hesitated. It was less than a second. Maybe no one else would have noticed. I noticed. That pause was the first crack. 2 weeks after standing in front of everyone we knew and promising me forever, my wife had already made me wonder whether I had married a stranger. I did not push her that night. I was too calm, which in hindsight was a bad sign. The next morning, I had a short-haul flight to Denver and back. During the entire trip, through takeoff, cruising altitude, descent, and landing, my mind kept circling back to that silence before her answer. Margaret Hayes always had a version of events ready. That night, she did not. 2 days later, we went to a birthday dinner for a mutual friend. It was one of those loud restaurants with tiny desserts and dim lighting, the kind Margaret Hayes liked because everyone looked better in photographs. Halfway through dessert, Talia Morgan, who had clearly had too much wine, leaned toward Margaret Hayes with a grin. "So," Talia Morgan said, "did you and Michael end up meeting last week? Or did he bail again?" Margaret Hayes's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I did not move. I did not blink. She recovered fast, but not fast enough. "Oh," she said with a little laugh. I ran into him. Total accident. We just had coffee." Talia Morgan, too tipsy to read the room, kept going. "God, I remember how obsessed you were with him in college. I told Aaron Cooper I'd feel bad for Charlie Bennett if Michael ever came back around." A few people laughed because they thought it was old gossip. I did not. Under the table, Margaret Hayes touched my leg, as if a secret squeeze could erase what had just happened. I smiled for the room. I said nothing. I finished the evening like a man completing a checklist in bad weather. At home, I asked her directly, "So Michael didn't just reach out. You saw him." She folded her arms. "I didn't lie. I just didn't think it mattered." "Before or after he texted you that he missed the way you looked at him?" She looked away. "I didn't plan it," she said. "It just happened. He's going through a breakup. It wasn't romantic." I was drying my hands at the sink. I set the towel down and asked, "Did you tell him you were married?" Another pause. "Of course I did," she said. I nodded. Not because I believed her, but because arguing with a lie before you have proof only teaches the liar what to hide better. The next day, Margaret Hayes told me she was going away for the weekend with some women from work. "A spa retreat," she said. "Out in the valley. We're turning our phones off. Just girl time." "Which girls?" "You don't know them," she answered immediately. "They're from newer teams." That answer had edges all over it. On Friday, I waited until she left. Then I picked up my keys and followed her. She did not drive toward the valley. She did not head toward wine country or any resort road. She drove straight into the city and pulled up in front of the Carillon Hotel. I parked across the street, turned the engine off, and watched. Margaret Hayes walked through the hotel entrance at 6:08 p.m. She was alone. She wore jeans, a coat, and a pair of heels I had not seen since the wedding weekend. At 6:22, Michael Brooks arrived. I recognized him from old photos I had once found buried on Margaret Hayes's hard drive. Tall, polished, smug in the easy way of men who have been forgiven too often. He walked into that hotel with no hesitation at all. I followed at a distance and moved into the lobby. I ordered a coffee at the bar so I would look like I belonged there. 3 minutes later, Margaret Hayes and Michael met near the elevators. There was no awkward greeting, no careful distance, no old friends catching up. They kissed. It was not a nervous kiss. It was not accidental. It was hungry and familiar. Margaret Hayes put her hand on his chest. Michael reached into his coat and pulled out a room key. I stood, lifted my phone, and took one photo. His hand was on the small of her back. Her wedding ring was visible as she reached toward the elevator button. That was all I needed. I walked across the lobby and said, "Margaret Hayes." She turned as if a gun had gone off. Michael froze with one foot half turned toward the elevator. His eyes moved from me to her and back again. I kept my voice even. "Spa weekend. Charlie Bennett," she said, breath catching. "I can explain. I'm sure you can. Let me guess. It just happened. You were tired, vulnerable, confused. You needed someone who made you feel seen." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I looked at Michael. "You're the ex. That figures." He started to speak. I cut him off. "Don't. This isn't about you." Then I turned back to my wife. "You kept the ring on," I said. "You wore it here. To this." Tears filled her eyes. "Can we talk? Please. Not here. That ring on your finger means you knew exactly what you were doing. That isn't confusion, Margaret Hayes. That's commitment to the lie." "I'm sorry," she whispered. I looked directly at her. I'll let my lawyer know you've officially checked out. Then I walked out before the elevator doors closed. When I got home, I opened her laptop. I was not proud of it, but I was past a point where trust mattered. Her texts were synced. Her cloud backups were accessible. She had saved entire albums without thinking. One folder was labeled Madrid. The dates were from 3 weeks before our wedding. 3 weeks. She flinched. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. And you didn't only hurt me. You humiliated me, then forced me to find proof of it. I turned the folder toward her. Inside were photos, screenshots, cloud backups, and time-stamped messages reaching back before our wedding. She looked at the folder as if it might burn her. She did not open it. What do you want me to say? She whispered. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to leave. Her eyes widened. Charlie Bennett, please. We're married. No, I said. We had a wedding. You broke the marriage when you let him take off your coat. It was one night, she said, standing now. One terrible mistake. You were planning that night while I was writing my vows. The tears came again. I don't want us to end like this. Then you shouldn't have started it like that. She stepped toward me, maybe to touch my arm, maybe to make the moment feel intimate enough to soften me. I stood and moved back. This isn't a pause, Margaret Hayes. It's a full stop. For once, she had no speech prepared. She went upstairs. 15 minutes later, she came down with a carry-on bag over her shoulder. She did not argue. She did not say goodbye. The door closed behind her, and the sound had a finality I still remember. She was gone, but the damage stayed. By Tuesday, people began choosing sides. Some mutual friends disappeared into silence. Others reached out with careful, useless sympathy. Margaret Hayes' friend Lena Parker called me and said, I didn't think she would actually go through with it. I told her not to meet him. I said nothing. She just wanted closure, Lena Parker added. She hasn't been thinking straight. She thought clearly enough to book a suite, I said. Then I hung up. The worst part was that the truth did not arrive all at once. It came in layers, each one more insulting than the last. On Thursday morning, I received a Facebook message from a woman named Jessica Miller. I did not know her. She wrote, Hi, Charlie Bennett. You don't know me, but I think your wife has been seeing my fiancé, Michael Brooks. I found you through an old tag photo on Margaret Hayes' profile. I called her. Jessica's voice was steady, but it was the kind of calm people use when they're standing in the middle of their own disaster. I'm 6 months pregnant, she said. Michael and I were supposed to get married in October. I had no idea what to say. I checked his devices last week, she continued. I found messages from your wife. Some recent, some older. They've been talking for months. Then she sent me screenshots. In one message, Margaret Hayes had written, If I asked you not to let me go this time, would you? Michael replied, I never wanted to. Then Margaret Hayes sent the line that made everything inside me go quiet. I'll say yes, even if I'm already married by then. It was dated a few days before our wedding. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger at first, just a strange, hollow understanding. I had not lost my wife after the wedding. I had walked down the aisle with someone who had already betrayed me. Jessica said softly, I thought you should know. You're not the only one he lied to. That night, Margaret Hayes called. I ignored it. She called again, then again. On the fourth call, I let it go to voicemail. Her message came through shaky and frantic. Charlie Bennett, I don't even know how to start. He lied to me. All of it. He's still with someone else. He used me. I was so stupid. Please, can we talk? I'll do anything. I saved the voicemail. Not because it moved me, because it was evidence. A week later, an email came from my company's executive team. The subject line said, International Assignment Opportunity, Urgent Response Requested. They were expanding a cargo fleet based in Singapore. It was a major assignment. Higher pay. Full relocation package. Minimum 2 years. I read it once and knew my answer. Yes. 2 days after that, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but something made me answer. Charlie Bennett. It was Margaret Hayes. I hung up immediately. A text came a few seconds later. I heard you moving. Can we please meet before you leave? I did not reply. The following week, my crew threw me a going-away party at a rooftop bar downtown. There were cold beers, bad jokes, and the kind of speeches pilots give when they're trying not to sound sentimental. Kyle Reynolds, my co-pilot and closest friend, had arranged most of it. For the first time in weeks, I almost felt light. Then Kyle Reynolds walked up beside me. His expression changed. "Someone's here to see you," he said. I turned. Margaret Hayes was walking across the rooftop as if she had been invited. She wore a tight black dress, curled hair, perfect makeup. She looked like she had dressed for a scene she planned to win. Conversations died around us. People stared. Some whispered. She came straight toward me. "I heard about the party through someone at the office," she said quickly. "I'm not here to ruin it. I swear. I just needed one chance to say what I couldn't say before." I did not answer. Her eyes shone. Her voice trembled. "Michael Leet. Everything was fake. He was still engaged. He told me I was his whole world, and then he blocked me when Jessica found out. I destroyed the only real thing I ever had, and I know that now." I nodded slowly. "Do you?" She nodded back, desperate now. "I've started therapy. I cut off the people who encouraged me. I was confused and selfish. I thought love meant feeling alive, but that wasn't love. You were real, Charlie Bennett. You were the real thing." The rooftop was silent enough that I could hear traffic far below. I stepped closer and lowered my voice, so only she could hear. "The woman I married doesn't exist anymore, and the woman standing in front of me is someone I don't know." Her lips trembled. "Please. You already had your chance," I said. "It came with a ring." She recoiled as if I had slapped her. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said. "You made a decision." She stood there, trapped in the silence she had created. I walked away. 10 minutes later, Margaret Hayes left alone. My flight to Singapore was scheduled for 6:10 in the morning. I reached the airport a little after 4. The terminal was still dark at the edges, bright only under the fluorescent lights. I had not checked in yet. I stood near the entrance for a moment, watching automatic doors open and close, feeling the strange weight of leaving an entire life behind. Then I saw her. Margaret Hayes spotted me and hurried over. "Charlie Bennett," she said, breathless. "Wait, please. I just need 5 minutes." She stepped in front of me. Before I could answer, another figure emerged from the shadows behind her. It was her father, Frank Hayes. He looked exhausted, not angry exactly, just worn down by shame and disappointment. He gave me a quiet nod. I nodded back. "I bought a ticket," Margaret Hayes said. "Not to chase you, just to be near you. I wanted to prove I'm serious." I said nothing. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo album. Our wedding. Our honeymoon. Maui. Italy. Smiling faces from a life that, at the time, I thought was real. "I know I ruined everything," she said. "I know I don't deserve another chance. But I needed you to see that I remember what we had." I looked at the album, then at her. "I remember what we had too," I said. "And I remember what you did to it." Her breath shook. "Real love is worth fighting for." I stepped closer, keeping my voice low and steady. "Real love doesn't need to be chased through airports. It doesn't show up after hotel rooms, lies, and another woman's pregnancy. It shows up the first time." She stared at me as if she still expected the scene to turn, as if the right words might finally unlock the ending she wanted. I looked her in the eye. "The divorce is already moving forward. My lawyer will contact you." Frank Hayes stepped forward and took her suitcase from her hand. "You done embarrassing yourself?" he asked quietly. Margaret Hayes did not answer. I turned and walked toward security. At the gate, I looked back once. She was still standing where I had left her, speechless, holding that little album like it could reverse time. When boarding began, I walked through the doors and into the rest of my life. A few months have passed since then. Last week, I sold a house. The buyer received the keys, the title was signed, and the last physical piece of that chapter left my hands. Margaret Hayes moved back in with her parents. From what I have heard, she is in therapy, trying to find herself somewhere in the wreckage she made. As for me, I started over. A new city, a new job, a new life. And for the first time in years, I boarded a plane with no baggage that mattered.